Am I the antagonist for calling my friend's GF creepy because she won't stop bringing up my race? I am a 25-year-old female with a group of friends, all aged between 24 and 26. There are a total of 8 people in the group, including a guy named Nick. Nick has been dating his girlfriend, whom I will call Josie, for about 8 or 9 months. He introduced Josie to the group approximately 6 months ago. Both Josie and I are of mixed race, whereas the rest of the group is white. Since meeting Josie, she has made numerous racially insensitive comments towards me. For instance, she has asked why all my friends are white, inquired about my African mother's background, and made remarks about my hair, suggesting that I shouldn't straighten it. Despite my attempts to steer the conversation away from these topics and brush it off with laughter, she constantly brings them up. Nick claims that she is merely trying to find her place within the friend group, but I fail to see why she cannot make an effort to know us as individuals, rather than focusing on this irrelevant commonality. I've also pointed out to Nick that Josie and I may both have African heritage, but from different countries with vastly distinct cultures. Even if I were raised in an African culture, which I was not, it still wouldn't be similar to hers. Moreover, her comments make me feel uncomfortable. During a recent boat outing, while having lunch, we were discussing our school experiences. I mentioned attending a school where the majority of students were of Asian descent. Josie then asked if there were any black students in my year and speculated whether they believed I wasn't black enough to be their friend. I don't know if it was that specific comment or the countless previous ones, but I felt an overwhelming anger that she once again brought up race in a conversation where everyone was participating without any valid reason. I replied by saying, "No, Josie, that's not why we weren't friends. Frankly, the only person fixated on my racial identity that I've ever encountered is you. And just so you know, it's incredibly creepy." Josie attempted to apologize, but I conveyed that I was only interested in an apology if she never brought up the topic again. My boyfriend intervened and swiftly changed the subject. Later on, Nick pulled me aside and informed me that I had deeply hurt Josie, explaining that she has some unresolved racial trauma, without providing further details. He claimed that my confrontation had made her highly uncomfortable. I replied that her discomfort was not my responsibility, and I had no intention of becoming Josie's emotional support-colored friend. If Nick thought otherwise, it raised questions about how he perceives me. Nick is now upset with me for insinuating he is racist. Additionally, 2 friends have sided with him. However, I firmly believe that I was justified in expecting Josie to treat me with the same respect as everyone else. Clearly, some people believe my words were too harsh. Do you think I was in the wrong? You have every right to set boundaries regarding topics that make you uncomfortable, especially when it comes to your racial identity. Josie repeatedly made racially insensitive comments towards you, even after you tried to steer the conversation away from those topics. It is not your responsibility to act as Josie's emotional support in regards to her racial trauma, especially if she has not shown any effort in getting to know you as an individual beyond your shared racial background. You spoke up and addressed the issue in a straightforward manner, and it is not unreasonable for you to expect respect and understanding from your friends. Nick and your other friends should be supporting you and recognizing the inappropriate nature of Josie's comments instead of taking her side and accusing you of being harsh. Am I the antagonist for dropping my nephew off at his grandma's place after my brother was 2 days late on picking him up? My 34-year-old brother asked me, a 19-year-old, to take care of his 4-month-old son for a day. I agreed, knowing that I would have to skip my trade school class for this. At my school, each class is 3 weeks long, and you are only allowed 2 absences per course. On the 3rd absence, you fail the course. To graduate, I must pass all the courses, meaning I would have to retake and pay $1,600 for any failed courses. The issue arose when my brother didn't come to pick up my nephew that night. I tried calling my brother and his wife multiple times, but they didn't answer. I gave up and set up the living room to sleep near my nephew. I planned to try contacting them again in the morning, but the next day the same thing happened. No response. I had to skip class again and spent another night watching my nephew. Now it's the 3rd day, and I'm angry because if I miss this day of class, I'll have to retake it. I kept calling and texting my brother, but suddenly my calls and texts stopped going through. I panicked and decided to strap my nephew into his car seat and drive to my brother's mother-in-law's house. I begged her to watch him for a few hours so I could go to class, and she agreed. I went to class. Where I may have acted wrongly is that my brother's mother-in-law is recovering from surgery. She can move around but can't do any heavy lifting. When I asked her for help, I apologized for having to resort to asking her. When my brother found out that I left my nephew with his mother-in-law, he got angry and called me, saying it was wrong to leave a baby with an elderly woman recovering from surgery. I argued that I only agreed to watch my nephew because he told me it would be for around 13 hours. If he hadn't blocked me, I wouldn't have had to ask for help. I also know that he wouldn't help me pay for the course retake if I skipped class again, and I can't afford $1,600 on my minimum wage income. He hung up and blocked me again. Now he's complaining that our parents and sister are taking my side. For those wondering why I had to watch my nephew for longer than expected, my brother and his wife turned their date into a road trip to Disney World, which is 4 states away. So I'm here asking if I am the asshole? You agreed to watch your brother's son for a day despite knowing that it would require you to skip class. However, your brother and his wife did not return to pick up their child and did not respond to your calls and texts. This forced you to skip multiple days of class, which puts your education and financial situation at risk. You made multiple attempts to contact your brother and were left with no other choice but to ask for help from your brother's mother-in-law, who was recovering from surgery. While it may not have been the ideal situation, you did what you had to do in order to attend class and prevent further consequences for your education. Your brother's reaction, getting angry and blocking you, is unwarranted as he was the one who did not hold up his end of the agreement and inconvenienced you. It is also unfair for him to expect you to bear the financial burden of retaking the class if you were to fail due to his actions. It is understandable that your parents and sister are taking your side in this situation, as it seems like you were put in a difficult position through no fault of your own. Am I the antagonist for evicting my cousin and her kids so I can move in? A few years ago, my 25-year-old female grandpa died and left the house to our family with a condition that it shouldn't be sold. The house remained empty for around 2 years after his passing. Initially, when my mom, aunt, and uncle asked if I wanted to move in, I declined, and none of my other cousins were interested either. However, my 28-year-old female cousin, whom we'll refer to as B, along with her partner, 32, and her 2 kids, 5 and 4, decided to move in. They signed a 2-year lease, which could be extended if no one else wanted to move in. Since then, I have changed my mind and now wish to move in after B's lease ends in 6 months. If I don't, my other cousin J, 24, plans to do so. B believes that both Jay and I are being unreasonable. She claims that we wanted nothing to do with the house until she moved in, although there have been changes in our circumstances. I understand that B's husband has an okay income, but they struggle financially because B doesn't work. She explains that her nursing school program is extremely demanding, making it impossible for her to work. Due to their financial situation and expenses related to school and childcare, they couldn't obtain a mortgage or afford current rental prices. She's upset that her kids will likely have to switch to a lower quality school district. B has disclosed that moving might force her to drop out of her BSN program and find work, but she's unsure about securing a new place to live and worries they might have to rely on Airbnb or something similar. She believes that since I can easily live with my mom, which I've already been doing, I should continue doing so for another 18 months to allow her to complete her nursing school. On the other hand, Jay is financially well off because her father, my uncle, inherited the family business, and she has access to multiple rental properties where she can live rent-free. B repeatedly asks us to empathize with her situation and claims to be stressed and overwhelmed since I shared my decision, despite having 6 months to plan. I feel guilty because B may have to give up on her schooling and disrupt her kids' lives. She insists that it's either this or they face homelessness. While I understand that her life would be more difficult if I or Jay move in, she had the knowledge that this was a possibility and failed to make necessary preparations, which is not my responsibility. I would like to take advantage of the affordable rent and avoid living with my mom. Just because B made poor choices and didn't plan accordingly, I don't believe it should become my problem. Would I be an asshole if I choose to move in and ask her family to leave? While it's understandable that B is currently going through a tough financial situation, she was aware of the possibility that someone else could move into the house after their lease is up. It is not your responsibility to accommodate her poor planning or make sacrifices for her. Additionally, you have your own reasons for wanting to move into the house, such as wanting to take advantage of cheap rent and not live with your mom. It's important to prioritize your own needs and goals. It's unfortunate that B may have to quit school and uproot her kids, but ultimately, it is her responsibility to make necessary arrangements for her family's well-being. You should not be expected to put your own plans on hold for her sake, especially when there are other options available to her, such as Jay's rental properties. However, it would be considerate to have open and honest communication with B about your intentions and give her a heads up, allowing her enough time to plan accordingly and find alternative arrangements if needed. Am I the antagonist for going to college at my cousin's dream school even though he didn't get in? I'm currently attending a highly reputable college, sitting in my dorm room and typing this post. I have a cousin who also had aspirations of attending the same college. He had been talking about it since our middle school days, convinced he would be accepted. However, he ultimately did not get in. Apparently, my cousin had a complete breakdown when he received the rejection email, but I was not present for that. He received his notification a few days before I received mine. My parents were thrilled that I was accepted with a significant scholarship, but as soon as my uncle, aunt, and cousin found out, they immediately bombarded me with calls, texts, and even showed up uninvited to my parents' house, all in an attempt to persuade me into giving up my spot for my cousin. He was furious that I was accepted while he was not. I suggested that it was likely due to my involvements in extracurricular activities, which he had dismissed as a waste of time. He argued that I didn't work as hard or achieve grades as high as his, implying that I did not deserve the opportunity to attend this college while he couldn't. I firmly told him tough luck. That's just how life works. And in response, He yelled that I would probably drop out anyway because I wouldn't be able to handle it like he could. The situation escalated to the point where I turned off my phone and used only my laptop for a week, hoping they would stop pestering me. Once they realized that I would not cave in and give my cousin my acceptance, as it is simply not possible to transfer acceptances, they started attempting to convince me to enroll in a different school. According to them, this particular college couldn't possibly be as great as it claims to be if they couldn't recognize the talent and intelligence of my cousin. They insisted I would be much happier elsewhere. This went on until the day I left for college 3 weeks ago. On that day, my cousin actually showed up at my parents' house and bluntly told me that if I proceeded with my plans, we would no longer be family because he didn't want to associate with someone he perceived as stealing his dreams, using his exact words. I simply responded with an okay and got into my car. Now I'm comfortably settled in my dorm, enjoying the company of my fun roommate, succeeding in my classes and feeling genuinely happy. However, my cousin continues to post angsty content on his Instagram, ranting about unfulfilled dreams and the futility of hard work. It's rather frustrating. So I am curious to hear your thoughts. Should I have chosen a different school? Am I the one at fault? It is clear that you are not in the wrong here. You worked hard to get into college, and your cousin's reaction to your acceptance is completely unreasonable. It is unfair for him and your other family members to pressure you into giving up your spot or attending a different school just because he didn't get in. His bitterness and resentment towards you are not your fault. You deserve to be proud of your achievements and enjoy your college experience. Your cousin's negative attitude and constant angsty posts on social media are his own issues to deal with, and you should not let them affect your happiness. Live your life, focus on your studies, and surround yourself with positive people who support and uplift you. Am I the antagonist for refusing to making sure things are equal between my daughter and stepdaughter? My wife and I brought our respective daughters from previous relationships into our marriage. Despite being close in age, our daughters had distinct personalities, which brings me to share my thoughts. My daughter has always been active and extroverted. Throughout her childhood, she participated in basketball, softball, soccer, volleyball, and even golf. In middle school, she took up tennis and instantly fell in love with it. I paid for her private lessons, and when she discovered the cost, she decided to make it her part-time job during her teenage years. Presently, she is a junior in high school, one of the top players in her school's team, and also teaches tennis to elementary school children. Charging $75 per hour per child, her exceptional skills and outgoing nature have resulted in a waiting list of students, earning her approximately $1,200 weekly. She could make more money, but I limit her hours so she can focus on her studies. My stepdaughter, on the other hand, is introverted and not particularly interested in sports. Although we attempted to enroll her in the same sports and teams as my daughter, she either objected or quit after a few weeks. I understand and never made her feel guilty about it. Recently turning 16, she found a job at a nearby burger place, earning $13 per hour and taking home less than $200 per week. Lately, my daughter decided to embrace independence by purchasing her own clothes and electronics. Given her financial capabilities, she can afford the latest fashion and gadgets. Consequently, my stepdaughter feels envious and has expressed her feelings openly. While we were in bed last night, my wife mentioned that it was unfair for one daughter to earn significantly more than the other. I replied that there was little we could do about it, and that this discrepancy serves as a valuable life lesson for both girls. Surprisingly, my wife proposed a couple of solutions. Either my daughter uses her money to help her stepsister buy the same items, or we cover the pay difference between the two girls. Assuming she was joking, I laughed only to realize she was serious. We ended up having a whispered argument for about an hour before falling asleep. This morning, she brought up the issue again and accused me of refusing to address it because I'm playing favorites, considering it a wrong move for a parent. Our argument continued until we had to leave for work. It is understandable that your daughter is making more money because she found a job that aligns with her skills and interests. You have supported her passion for tennis by providing private lessons and limiting her hours to prioritize her education. It is not fair to expect her to share her hard-earned money with her stepsister just to alleviate jealousy. While your stepdaughter may feel envious, it is a good opportunity for her to learn valuable life lessons about finding her own passion and striving for financial independence. It is not your responsibility to equalize their earnings or cover the pay difference. You have made efforts to involve your stepdaughter in sports and extracurricular activities, but she has chosen not to participate. It might be beneficial to explore other hobbies or potential marketable skills that she could pursue. Ultimately, it is important for both girls to understand that everyone has their own unique talents and interests, and comparing themselves to each other is not productive or fair. Am I the antagonist? I told my pregnant sister I'm upset for not being made the godmother and not being able to help in the planning of the baby shower. My sister, let's call her Anne, who is 31 years old, is 3 months pregnant. Anne is my only sibling, and this will be her first baby. Our dad passed away 4 years ago, so it has been just the three of us for a while now. My mom and I have been really excited about welcoming a new member to the family. Since Anne is my only sibling, I thought that I would be the baby's godmother. However, Anne's husband recently informed her that I would need to be married in order to be the godmother. I am currently single and have no plans to get married, so this news made me sad. I kept my feelings to myself because if the Catholic Church says I can't be a godmother, who am I to argue? Recently, I accompanied Anne and our mom to the Prego Expo, where we started discussing the baby shower and planning for it. However, today I received a text message from Anne informing me of the date and location for the baby shower. I was confused because we had previously talked about a different location. Anne explained that her husband's brother and his wife preferred this location and wanted a DJ for a more party-like atmosphere. I was taken aback because I had expected my mom and I to handle the planning, especially since she will be paying for the location with her limited income. To my surprise, Anne then sent me screenshots of table centerpieces and shower decorations, asking me to make them for the shower. This upset me, and I found myself crying without fully understanding why. I had initially planned to ignore Anne for a few hours to gather my thoughts, but she kept messaging me, demanding a response. Eventually, I texted her back, expressing my disappointment about not being chosen as the godmother and feeling sidelined in the planning process. I also mentioned how hurt I was by her husband's family taking control and the expectation for me to do the decorations without any involvement or input. Anne replied, stating that it was her husband's decision, she never confirmed the location, and that I wasn't making any sense. I texted her back, explaining that being involved in planning means having a say, and I felt excluded rather than included in the process. I admitted that I may have misunderstood my level of involvement and that my feelings were justified, but I assured her that I would eventually get over it. Since then, she has not responded. Now, my mom is angry at me for upsetting Anne, and she is worried about how it might affect the baby, so I am feeling awful about the whole situation. I realize that it is Anne's decision regarding my level of involvement, and I should have kept my feelings to myself, considering she is pregnant and any stress may impact her baby's well-being. Am I the one to blame here? Your assumption about being the baby's godmother was based on previous discussions, and it is understandable that you would feel hurt and disappointed when your sister's husband imposed a requirement that you cannot fulfill. However, it is important to note that this decision ultimately lies with your sister and her husband, and it is their right to choose who they want as the godmother. Regarding the baby shower planning, it appears that there may have been some miscommunication between you and your sister. It is understandable that you were upset when you found out that her husband's family seemed to be taking over the planning, especially since your mother is contributing financially. However, it would have been more appropriate to express your concerns calmly rather than bottling them up and then exploding at your sister. While it is unfortunate that your sister hasn't responded, it is important to remember that pregnancy can be a highly emotional and overwhelming time for her. It may be best to apologize for the way you expressed your feelings and try to have a mature conversation about your concerns. Additionally, it may be helpful to involve your mother in this conversation, as she may be able to mediate and find a resolution that works for everyone. Overall, it doesn't seem like you intentionally acted with malice or tried to harm your sister or the baby. However, it would be beneficial to reflect on your communication and find a way to address your feelings in a more constructive manner in the future. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.